How will all of these tech companies moving to Austin influence the housing market?
I'll give you one guess.
What?
Thanks so much for watching. If you're interested in learning more about Austin real estate, please consider giving this video a like and subscribe if you want more videos from us where we cover all the latest happenings around the city regarding real estate.
If you want to hear more videos from us, see them or hear them or both at the same time, hit the little bell and it will notify you every time we put out a new video. Have you heard the ginormous list of companies that are moving to Austin or expanding in Austin, et cetera, et cetera?
It's ginormous.
It's ginormous. It's over 250 companies.
Right, so ginormous is evidently 10 to the power of 2.
Pretty much, yeah.
We've decided that. That's
We've
like a new metric. Still, that's a lot for a city.
Oh, heck yeah. Especially that was over the course of the last year or two. And I mean, it includes Tesla. We'll be moving a manufacturing plant here.
Tesla's always top of the list. You hear that all the time.
Tesla.
Well, that's because they're bringing like 10,000 new jobs here once the factory's done, and it's still not done yet.
Yeah,
right?
No, definitely. And Elon with his America's going to see the biggest boom that he talks
his
like that
one
too, right?
6 seconds on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what people focus on.
Exactly. 10,000 jobs in 2022.
Well, and there's also the parts plant for SpaceX.
Yep.
It's going to be here. We don't know where that was going. That was just like a tweet.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah. It's
From
rumored
tweet
to
to completion.
East Austin off
it
of.
takes a little while.
Rumored to be East Austin off of 130, but we'll see.
That would be near the Tesla plant. That would make sense.
And Google, obviously.
Google's already here. They're just finishing up their big building that looks kind of like a shark tooth.
50 million. 50 million in office space and data centers in Texas.
50 million doesn't go as far as it used to.
Well,
it's still a lot, though.
It's something.
It is. It's something.
It's something. We got Oracle.
Yeah, they're here. They're here and staffed.
And they're here, and they moved their corporate center, so they had a regular and then their corporate office.
Yep. But like all of those employees have been hired. The buildings are full. So
Canva.
Yep. Canva. I don't know how many employees Canva has. I mean, I love Canva.
I know. Me too.
I should look that up.
We helped one of their bigwigs
buy a house.
Yeah, buy a house.
It was fun. It was a cool house.
It was a cool house.
But still, that's another, feather in the cap of Austin for tech companies.
Apple's got $1 billion.
See, now that's a much better number than 50 million.
A billion's more than a million money.
It is. Like Apple, you got Google. They're just trying to outcompete each other on spend in Austin.
And that one's in North Austin.
It is. Jollyville.
Jollyville.
It's just a funny name, Jollyville.
Jollyville.
You're going to be happy if you're in Jollyville.
Didn't we say we were going to do the whole next video with the British accent?
No, we're not going to do that.
And then obviously Facebook and Amazon's opening 2 large distribution centers, one at the north side of Austin, one at the south side of Austin.
One on Pecan Street.
Technically they're in other cities, whatever. But North Austin and South Austin.
Pflugerville's kind of like Austin. It's almost Austin.
It's like North Austin.
It's like an Austin burb.
Der Flug.
Der Flug.
Exactly. And then South Austin, otherwise known as Kyle.
Oh, is that where it's going? Is it Kyle? And Beauty-Kyle.
Beauty-Kyle. I actually had a client request a search for things in Pflugerville, East Austin, and Beauty-Kyle, Texas.
Beauty-Kyle.
It was one word. I was like, no, that's not one word. Why is Austin so desirable for tech companies?
Well, what do you think it's? I mean, I've got an answer. I could just come right out with it.
I asked you because I wanted to hear your answer.
I'll tell you. I mean, being a former tech guy, right? I'm going to say it's almost entirely about talent, right? Because ultimately, the people you want to hire, tech companies, they need young talent. They need people under 30 because they don't have kids and they've got time on their hands and they just love digging into problems.
They'll dedicate 14 hours of their life every day to the company.
And they cost less because they haven't been around as long. So they know that they need motivated, smart, young people are the fuel for those companies. Sorry, older engineers, you're good too, but you know what I mean. And so they all live in just a couple of places. They all want to go to the hip spots. So you've got San Francisco, New York, Seattle, Austin is one of them. And it turns out that so far, Austin is still cheaper to live in than San Francisco, Seattle, and New York.
Older people like hip places too.
We do, because we go have kids there and then we're there.
And then we hide in our houses.
And then we stay there.
Having kids in a cool town.
I remember being young and hip.
We were so young. We were so hip.
It was fun. I still have a shiny shirt from the metrosexual days. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. There's also tax incentive reasons.
That's true. There is no income tax in Texas. You do have property tax, but no income tax. And plus, the city will often give corporations and binnies to move their headquarters and their facilities here because they know it brings jobs, and jobs bring people with money, which brings more people buying houses, which brings more tax revenue, yada, yada, yada.
And I mean, relative to other major tech centers, we're still reasonably priced. Right?
Yeah.
Or less even.
Yeah, I mean, the average house price here is just under 600,000, but in Seattle, that's like 800 or 900.
Yep.
In San
If not
Francisco,
over.
that's like 1.1 to 1.3. In New York, I don't know New York's off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's higher.
Yeah.
So even
There's
though
like
Austin's getting more
North
expensive,
Carolina and Georgia might be
they're
more
less.
reasonably priced. Yeah.
But they're also, I mean, not to toot our own horn, but I'm going to say they're not as hip and cool as Austin is.
But we're biased.
But we are biased.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, going back to the cool factor, did we mention the cool factor?
Yeah.
I mean, between, the crazy live music scene, the festival scene here is awesome.
South by Southwest.
The clubbing scene, the general just, vibe of twinkle lights and beers on the patio and that sort of thing.
Yep.
It's lovely. Like, this is why we moved here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a vibrant and fun place to be. And so it turns out that's where all of those engineers and really smart kids want to be. And so if they're going to go hire those kids, like when I say kids, I mean, sub 30, because I'm over 40, so I call them kids. They're not, but you know what I mean. A lot of them are here. So that's where you're going to hire people.
Well, and a last point for why tech companies want to be here is that there are other tech companies already here. So there's
true.
a pool of talent that already exists here that they can mooch talent off of.
Dell has been here for a while. AMD has been here for a while. Samsung has been here for a while. You've got the
Definitely.
University of Texas Austin, which generates a lot of engineers coming out of it. So like, hey guys, you don't have to go anywhere. Just go down the street and pick your tech company.
Definitely.
Yep. Okay, so Alyse, how has COVID compiled on top of all these tech companies impacted the Austin housing market?
Definitely. Well, what we saw was that when people were freed up to work from home, a lot of them moved from more expensive markets into Austin with, the extra money that they expected to have for a down payment in a much more expensive market,
Yep.
and the stronger financing of a job that's paying in a much more expensive market.
Yep.
And so that had some impact. Don't hate on the converts, but that had some impact on the pricing in Austin.
Yeah, there's a fancy word for that. Geo arbitrage,
Geo-arbitrage.
right? Like work in an expensive market, but live in a cheaper market.
Definitely.
So
Which
a
is
lot of that happened with COVID.
super smart. And then additionally, you saw a lot of people wanting to upgrade or get something slightly out in the country because they wanted more space.
Yeah.
Because they're like, look, I'm spending all my time at home. I definitely at least need an office. I need some place for my children to be away from me while I am working.
Yep.
And
Don't know
not-
what that's like.
No, not at all. Especially not your dog barking at the door. And so people upgraded to a larger space, et cetera. You saw, condos were a little bit out of disfavor because, people weren't really going out and interacting with each other. So being in the trendy downtown area to be able to go out and interact with people wasn't as trendy as
Yeah,
usual.
because you had to stay in your tiny condo.
Exactly. So, COVID definitely had an impact on the boom in the Austin market, but there are greater things at work that are beyond that as COVID, hopefully, knock on fake wood, fades a bit more over time, that will still impact the Austin market, i.e. these tech companies. But John, are there enough homes for all these people? How is this going to affect the Austin housing market?
Well, I'm just going to go back to Economics 101, which is supply and demand curves. So Austin can only build houses at a specific rate. So you've got a certain amount of houses that already exist. Everyone wants to move into them. Hey, if that supply doesn't change, then the prices go up. However, the city of Austin has only the capability to build about 10,000 homes a year. And that's not because there aren't enough builders out there. It's the fact that they can't permit more than 10,000 new homes a year. So it's really kind of gated on the city of Austin in the permitting process. Now, they're expanding that process, but it's not going nearly fast enough. So it's really just going to be a race between like how fast can they permit versus how fast can they build versus how many people are moving in. And so far, they're not keeping up with the demand. So
Gosh,
people
what happens when they don't keep up with demand?
That's right. So people are moving in faster than they can build new stuff. So that means prices are going to go up.
Yeah.
So until the city of Austin can increase their permitting process, and when I say increase, I mean increase their throughput, and they have bought more office space and they're hiring more people, but there's still a struggle. It's not like you can double that overnight. We'll probably continue to see increasing prices And then if they permit them all, then they have to go get built too. So I would imagine that the opportunity is there for builders to take advantage of it, but we will see. But in the short term, I would say we're still going to see rising prices.
Well, and when you have companies like Tesla talking about 10,000 jobs hired on in 1 year, and that's just one company, right? Look, luckily you have some companies counterbalancing that. I've heard Apple is doing a phase in, like they're hiring over the course of the next year or two, but they're going to allow people to move to Austin over the course of the next few years to be able to alleviate the housing sort of situation for their employees and not make their employees have to make a rash, overpriced decision because they're desperate for a house. So yeah, it's a complicated thing figuring out where all these people are going to go.
Tesla has even talked about building their own housing for their employees on their property, right?
Because they're so desperate for it.
I mean, you still have to get the permits for that stuff and the ETJ, but I guess more power to them. They're like, look, if the city isn't going to do it, then we're just going to apply for a permit and build stuff with it. Because they need the people. And they're like, look, building stuff is not a hard problem. Spaceships are a hard problem. Building houses, not that hard.
If we can build a spaceship,
you can build an apartment
that
building.
lifts 1,000 tons into outer space in 1 year. Then I think we can figure out how to build some housing.
Well, I think it might require more than one trip to get 1,000 tons, but something along those lines. Yeah,
something along those lines. And then, how has Austin already changed as a result of the influx of population?
Well, when we got here, which is like in 2008 or 9,
2007.
7, okay. Just listen to your wives, folks. Austin was already growing too fast, right? People were complaining about the roads that they were putting in, and like it had grown faster than it had the capacity to do so, and it really hasn't stopped. So
it's accelerated, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, people like Austin for its kind of old town feel, and it's like its charm from the 70s and things like that. But a lot of that stuff is certainly changing. It's getting newer. A lot of the buildings are newer. A lot of those older buildings are getting torn down. You've got less of the stuff that was like kitschy, culture-y, awesome.
Yeah.
And you've got more high rises.
Well,
and that just happens when a city grows.
Between that, property values going up, and as a result, property taxes, which are substantial in Texas and Austin, between all of those going up, and then meanwhile, COVID, a lot of the coolest clubs in Austin either had to shutter for a long time or close entirely. And so things have really transformed. I know some people who've moved here over the course of the last 4 or 5 years even, who are saying Austin is not the same as when I moved here. I don't like the flavor of it anymore. I'm considering other towns, that sort of thing. So, I mean, there is an aspect of when you have all those people come in and prices shoot up and a lot of the cool old timey feel of it, fades, it could lose some of its appeal.
Yep, it's kind of little town charm. It's not a little town anymore, but it's also not a big town. It's only 1 million people-ish. And you look at Dallas and Houston, those are so much bigger.
Yeah, and I know Austin really is trying to mitigate that and find a good middle ground of keeping the Austin cool and weird aspect while allowing for the growth in a way that people can still afford to buy a house that were from here originally. Nobody's perfect. They're trying. But we'll see. We'll see how this all pans out. There sure are a lot of jobs coming into Austin, though.
There are.
Holy moly. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Alyse.
And I'm John.
And we're with the Heart of Austin Homes team. And if you like what you heard, please throw us a like and subscribe. And we would love to see you sometime soon.
Thanks so much, everybody.